Hey, good morning, everybody. I just come back from my vacation visa and didn't go anywhere, staying in Regina. Last week, I got a cold. I still feel it, but
It's
yeah,
frosty out though, so hurry.
sorry for my nose sounds. Anyway, this presentation was, I give this presentation a longer version to the South Organic Field Day in last August. And so this is a shrinked uh, format. And basically, we're trying to, you know, talking about some of the management practices at the farm level that would be able to improve the phosphorus availability or use efficiency. That's a start. There's not much new stuff over here. Uh, like we all know, phosphorus is an essential element for the growth, maintain of all tissues and cells, and the production of the genes block DNA for all lives in plants. Uh, the growth, the root growth, are promoting this. I need to move this thing on top. Yeah, over there. Yeah, the phosphorus stimulate root growth, promoting maturity and motivate seeds production. In the past, over 95% of the world mined rock phosphate is used in agriculture to produce phosphorus fertilizers. Other 5% of the rock was used by manufacturing industry, including production of solar panel, the lithium battery, for the power tools and electronic vehicles. And it looks like this amount of the P need for battery production are increasing. Currently, it's a really small amount, probably 1 to 2% by 2050, and this needs would increase to 5%. Actually, P is also needed for manufacturing the semiconductor and computer chips. And those, they use a very tiny amount, but those are really high value products. So if there's a competition between the industry use and agriculture use, apparently the manufacturers would like to use the phosphorus on those ones. The other, scarcity uh, before the industrialization, natural P balance is pretty good, and all the peas harvested from the field would go back to the field. However, the separation of livestock and agriculture and grain production basically broken this kind of balanced cycle. And now the scarcity of P in soil has often become limiting factor, particularly in organic production systems. Research has shown that crop do not use other nutrients efficiently if P supply is inadequate, if the P supply is low. The other information I want to share with you is that the Canadian topsoils contain a tremendous amount of P in the soil. It ranges from anywhere from 100 to 2,500 kilograms per hectare. Of that reserve, only a very small fraction, sometimes less than 1%, is in solubilized forms that is available to the crop. Major soil P pools include in three in major the soil P are actually stored in three major P pools. One is the rock P pool, the organic. This is the original P rock in the soil, or derived from excessive fertilizer application that was applied to soil in years, and then they transferred into this kind of P pool. Another pool is organic P pool. It comes from plant residue, manure, and compost added to the soil. And the organic P in soil could include both the living biomass and the dead bodies. The most important the P pool in the soil is the soluble form, both organic and inorganic, that dissolved in the soil water, and including those loosely absorbed on the surface of soil particles. So that one is where the plant would take their P from. And when we're talking about P pools, and we need to look at the organic, we need to look at the big cycles, like a P cycling in the water and in the soils. And the first cycle is the organic P cycle. The P organic materials are added to the soil, then being utilized by the soil living biomass through microbial processes, and that would release part of it into the soluble form, and which will be able to be used by the crop. And others would become organic because microbial would assimilate that as their body material to build their biomass there. And another big cycle is the inorganic P cycle, and which could start from it could start from anywhere. Because it's cycle. So we would say, like a soluble P in soil solution move to rapid exchangeable form, and they will be attached to the soil particle surfaces. And when the soil particle is mainly composed by the calciums, and then they start transform to P rock, which is similar to the original P rock, but the size are much smaller. Yeah, the P rock could start dissolving when the soil pH decreases, normally to pH less than 5.5. In Saskatchewan, the higher soil pH helped transformation of a P from the exchangeable form or soluble form to the precipitated forms. Crop and soil microbes can also connect these two big cycles, such as our firefight roots can execute acidic organic compounds, which would dissolve the precipitate P. Soil bacteria and fungi can also make the P rock available to themselves and for the crops, which is important part of the cycling. The P absorption is naturally through the plant roots. Roots take up free moving P ions, orthophosphate normally, through the contacting with its root tips. The young roots can also absorb certain form of a simple organic P. The young root tips continue to expand as the crops start growing and into the fresh area in the soil, and root hair help expand the surface area that is available for P absorption. Another thing that would play a role in the P absorption is a vascular mycorrhizal fungi, AMF. I heard a lot of talks about AMF in those conferences and meetings. So the organic producers are, well, I guess, are close friends to AMF. You probably know them really well, and they are growing in association with root cells and extending up to, could be several centimeters into the soil, which help to transfer P into the root system. And we'll spend a couple of minutes talking about AMF. What are the AMF? AMF are soil microbes that can establish symbiotic relationships with the plant roots and positively influence the plant resistance to the abiotic stresses such as low soil moisture, lack of nutrients, and a lack of or resistant to the pathogens. Scientists found that mycorrhizal symbiosis evolved from parasite interactions that develop into today's mutual benefits relationships. Some of the research done was pretty cool by the scientists to prove this, and because they found this kind of a history, connect this kind of a history evidence and get those. The picture I show over here is this picture was I stole that from the internet, and look at this kind of AMF. They use an electron microscope to take this picture. It's pretty amazing, and they are not only attached to the surface. The hyphens are actually connected to inside cells, so they could transfer the phosphorus or water directly into the inside of the root system. And those are the young roots, and those are the MF hyphens. What does AMF do? AMF are found in natural environment and perform several key ecological functions, including enhancing uptake immobile nutrients, particularly like phosphorus. They also reduce the stress and help plant growth. The research has found that AMF actually help the crop, nutrients uptake. For the phosphorus, 80%, for copper, 60%, nitrogen 25%, zinc about 25%, potassium 10%. And those are contributed by the AMF absorption. So it's pretty amazing. In the organic and low input cropping systems, AMF play even more important roles in uptake, particularly when the soil P is low. Talking about managing the AMF, some practices like using intensive tillage, apply high rate of fertilizer and growing non-AMF host crop, such as a brassica or mustard, have the potential to degrade field native AMF community, and the population start to decrease slowly. In past several years, granular inoculants containing AMF species are commercially available, but may or may not be economic for large-scale crop production at this point in time. Here are some examples that, Canadian Tire, Amazon, they all sell these things. And some farmers use this to inoculate their seeds and try to help. It is commonly exist in the soil, but if you inoculate them in earlier season, they could start, save the roots time to search for these microbes or fungi and they could grab it, and then they could start forming this kind of a relationship and start working at the very beginning of the crop growth. That really helped the crop to get a good start. So something we need to think about is to not to reduce the practices that potentially harm or degrade native AMF in the field, and including AMF host crops in your crop rotation or in your intercropping mix to maintain the AMF level in your soil and improve AMF plant symbiotics through the seed inoculation. Something like with compost. If you do compost, you could inoculate AMF to your compost, and you can also purchase commercially available granular inoculants. And sometimes you actually could produce your own. We'll talk about that later. Another way of increase the P availability in the soil is mobilize this available P in your soil. Some of the crops or microbes, they have the ability to exudate organic compounds or organic acids, which would form the micro area, reduce the pH in the micro area and close to the root tips. And that also help, particularly in rhizosphere acidification. And then that would drop the local pH to less than 5.5 and help the P rock to dissolve. AMF play that role as well. Plant and microbes produce enzymes in response to the low P availability, particularly in the organic cropping system, when the soil P level is low, and the plants would be able to try to, exudate more of those things, which, like the plant roots and the microbes are be able to execute sugar, amino acid, and fatty acid, are those kind of things. So, yeah, organic matter and organic P mineralization is another sources where the P availability come from. One of the approach that a farmer could do is to, to increase the rock P's availability, P availability from the P rocks is to do the composting. And some research has found that adding rock P to manure during the composting create a blended product, which is more efficient. Actually, much of a small portion of the rock P will be dissolved because they have this, when they interact with the bacteria and with the organic component or organic acidic legend group stuff, and they actually help to dissolve the rock phosphate. So in that case, if you want to do that, you could incorporate rock P into the compost pile when you make the turn, when you're making the turn. Yeah, the compost with naturally presented microbes and other organic materials would help the biological reaction, which ensures the short-term, long-term solubility of the phosphate release and increase availability. And another approach farmer could practice is to feed the crop. I know this is a little bit conflict to the organic idea, like organic always thinking about build a soil health, feed the soil rather than feed the crop. However, for this particular element, and what we found that when you apply available a small limited resources P to the soil, and because the soil have particularly in Saskatchewan, in North America, we had this kind of calcareous soils. We have lots of calcium, which will be able to fix them. And once you put a lot of those kind of nutrients into phosphorus into it, and they start to react with the calcium and form this kind of unavailable P rocks. So, I think it won't against the organic philosophy if we feed the crop, because if instead of waste the money and into this kind of soil and probably would become unavailable or being eroded into the water streams to pollute the surface water, and this is better for the for your pocket and for the environment. And yeah, we could use a foliar spray for the for this phosphorus amendment or fertilizers or nutrients amendment. A foliar application is often result in a higher efficiency in nutrient utilization. Apply it in cloudy day or later in the afternoon to reduce a quick evaporation. That would help the plant to assess those nutrients. Or you could use a seed dressing or side banding where you seed this crops that really help the young plants, young seedlings to develop their root systems, and which build the foundation for the crop to deal with the unfavorable conditions like drought or nutrient shortage. So when the young plants access the phosphorus, the roots would be able to start developing quickly in young age. They could go longer, deeper. That would help them to scavenge other nutrients and as well as the P. If you have a limited amount of P amendment or P fertilizers, and the University of Manitoba suggests that add the P to your cover crop season, not to your cash crop season. The reason they give is the legume crops really need P nutrient to grow well in low P soils. If you grow a cover crop that year, and then the cover crop need new P to grow better. And a well-established legume crop would have strong P, would have a strong P mobilization ability to make more soil P available to the crop. And sometimes, when they acidify the soil, and the companion crop, like cereal crops, would be able to absorb those P as well. So your cover crop would really make a difference if you apply the available P to grow this cover crops. Another thing was a well-established legume crop would also fix more nitrogen and share with their companion crops, and then you have more when you apply the limited amount of the P to the cover crop, you have a more P available, and then you would have a more nitrogen fixed, and you would have more biomass produced in that particular season. So that actually would help the nutrients supply in the subsequent seasons for your cash crops. Another thing what you need to think about is the crop design. Sometimes you would grow, like uh, particularly when the soil P supply is low, and you could grow an intercrop. And improved performance intercropping has been found by several research. And one of the research found that 43% more grain yield in the maize and faba bean intercropping, which is resulted from the P mobilization by the faba bean. Another thing what you need to think about is the rotate between AMF crop and non-AMF crops to maintain AMF level and diversity. For example, oats grow oats after mustard because mustard is not really a AMF supporting crop. And then if you grow oats, oats would be able to recruit those AMF fungi and then reestablish. So similar, like a flax after field P, because the field P is very strong AMF supporting crop. So flax need to have this kind of AFM population in the soil and then to produce a high yield. Yeah, that's what my short presentation is about. It's not really, explain every single concept, but just to bring those things together, let you think, and you probably have a better ideas to do on your own farm and how to improve your P use efficiency. Yeah, that's my short talk.